So, Avengers Endgame, the movie in which they described it as the end of a saga. And holy hell, what an end of a saga it was. If you want to know if you should watch it, absolutely. Okay, I think it's no duh. You should probably watch the movie. Okay, it's a super fun experience, especially if you watch it within the first few days of the theater release of the movie. And if you did watch it in the theater, then I think you might agree with me, especially if you watch it in the first few days of the theatrical release, that it's actually a little bit better in the theater specifically, which is weird because a lot of movies, I would say, is not as good in the theater because then you have to deal with, all the people around you and all the lights and, all the other stuff. But honestly, I think it's one of the few movies that is better in a theater. Okay, it feels more like a event when you go to see this movie, and I think that's the best way to describe it. It doesn't feel exactly like a movie necessarily. It doesn't feel like you're just sitting down watching a movie, having a few laughs and stuff like all the other Marvel movies. No, this one just feels so incredibly different. And if you watch a movie with other people, I think typically it feels better. But if you watch it with a sea of people, this movie specifically, Avengers Endgame, it is unrelentingly emotional. You feel everything a million times harder. Like how in Infinity War, when everybody in the theater was watching it, you felt the air get sucked out. You felt the life flash and just everybody go completely still and quiet. But when it comes to Endgame, everything that was good, that was bad, that was exciting, that was depressing, everything, you felt it a million times more. I typically hate it when people call out at a movie, because it just doesn't seem right to do, but this movie, Avengers Endgame, it is such an event that I didn't mind it. In fact, the people, when they called out at the movie, when they showed their excitement, their sadness, their shock, it made everything feel so much better. And I think that's one of the main takeaways you should take from Endgame. If you do see it in the theater, which I highly recommend you do, don't go into it thinking, oh, I'm going to watch a movie. Think of it as, I'm going to experience something with a ton of people. And I know that sounds like marketing, but that's exactly how I felt when watching it. And especially if you're a comic book nerd, well, obviously you are going to see this movie, but if you are a comic book nerd and you haven't seen the movie, just know that you are going to absolutely love it. This movie is packed full of fan service and good moments. It's one of the probably most emotional movies I have ever seen. I don't think I've ever been as happy, as sad, or as excited as watching Avengers Endgame. Because there's just so much stuff. And you might be wondering to yourself, why haven't I really spoken about what happens in the movie? It's because I don't want to talk about it. There's a lot of people online who just love to spoil and ruin this movie. And trust me, I got a little bit spoiled beforehand, which is why I went 2 days after the movie. Because after the first day, a lot of people was like, oh, this happens. I'm like, nope, we're going to see the movie now. But I don't want to say anything. I don't want to spoil the movie. That's why I'm going to leave the second half of this review to be spoiled. But I don't want to say anything because if you haven't seen the movie, which I highly recommend you do, go into it thinking it's an event. Go into it knowing that you are going to have probably one of the best times you've ever had, especially if you're a huge MCU fan. It's one of the few movies I've ever felt as impacted as I did. I think this is the most emotional I felt of all time in terms of watching a movie. And then the second one, in second place of Endgame, would have to be Infinity War, because Infinity War left me with so much sadness, while Endgame left me with so much more emotion. And I don't know, maybe I'm just an emotional guy, but I almost cried a lot in that movie. Not just out of sadness, but out of excitement and laughter. And it's so unbelievably tight. A lot of it can make sense, but a lot of the times some of it might not make too much sense. I'll say this, there's some weird time things that happen. I don't want to say too much, but there are some weird time things that happen in the movie, which I will cover maybe later on in this channel. Like, some things aren't necessarily consistent, and I think it could be pretty awesome to not only analyze, but just to watch. Like, even if you're not an over-analytic kind of person like I am, you will absolutely love Endgame. Okay, that's the non-spoiler section of this review done. So, if you haven't seen the movie, I highly recommend shut off the video now. We're done. It's over, okay? Pause the video, come back, leave a like, subscribe if you want to, all that stuff. Pretend there's an outro happening, blah, 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 outro, we're done. Okay, spoiler time. So clearly, since you've seen this movie, oh my god, there were so many unbelievable moments that I just absolutely loved in terms of sadness and excitedness and just, oh my god, a lot of it was so good. I think probably the first nearly orgasmic experience I had watching this movie, that's only half joking, is obviously Captain America grabbing Mjolnir. Oh my god, absolutely insane. I did not think it was gonna happen. I felt like Captain America wasn't gonna hold Mjolnir, which, I don't know, maybe I'm stupid for thinking that, but I felt like in the MCU, it just wasn't gonna happen. Like, I don't necessarily see why he was worthy. Like, of course, he's very much worthy in the comics and stuff, but I felt like for some reason in the MCU, it didn't quite fit. But as soon as I saw Captain America, Steve Rogers, holding up the Mjolnir, I was like, yes. Even though maybe I don't think he deserves it, which I know might have some backlash to that. Maybe he doesn't deserve it. I don't know. He's done some stuff. But, like, Mjolnir, when he held it up, I was like, you know what? I don't even care. I stopped being an analyst. I was like, I'm gonna watch this and enjoy this and love this. As soon as he held it up, everybody in the theater, like I mentioned, this is like an event, so I'm gonna talk about not only my emotions, but the emotions of other people around me. Everybody in the theater, they just screamed in excitement. I could hear it. Everybody, it was a roar in the theater of just, oh my god, he's holding Mjolnir. And, whew, it was great. It was great. There's also like a whole bunch of little things that happened, especially when they went back in the timeline and stuff. Like Captain America fighting Captain America. I mean, it writes itself, honestly. Captain America versus Captain America. See which Captain America is the better Captain America, even though it's the same guy from the future. Anyways, and I understand that I'm kind of going out of order with this, but there's just so much in my brain that I just want to scream out and just, oh, it's just so good. I think one of the like most low-key sad parts of the movie that not a lot of people really talked about, like when I was like sort of walking out and a lot of people didn't really mention, like Tony Stark hugging Howard, his dad, was unfreaking believable to watch that. I don't know, maybe this is just me growing up with like one parent, but just seeing this, like the last opportunity to really like feel some sort of human connection with his father. Even though Howard didn't know him, even though he didn't know anything about him, just the idea of Tony getting that hug, knowing, you know what, even though you weren't around to raise me, you raised me well somehow. And Tony went on to become Iron Man. It just felt so like, oh my god, like heart-wrenching sadness. And just at the same time, like, you know what? That's Tony. That's Iron Man right there. You're probably gonna die in this movie, which eventually he did. But you know what? I'm glad you got that moment. Speaking of, let's talk about a moment right before Iron Man says the famous last lines of Iron Man 1. When all of the people just come back. That was another one of those moments in the theater where everybody was just, oh my god, like, cheering and screaming. I'm pretty sure if someone had a gun, they'd be shooting it off in the air. It'd be some weird western shit happening. But as soon as Black Panther walked out of the portal, like everybody, I don't think half the people knew, like understood and really recognized Falcon's voice, because I've said it already, I don't think a lot of people really care about Falcon, especially before this movie. They're probably going to start caring about him more towards the rest of the next of the MCU stuff, considering he kind of becomes the new Captain America. But anyways, I don't think a lot of people really care about Falcon. And as soon as Steve Rogers heard Falcon on the intercom, I don't think a lot of people really, like, caught it at first. I don't know, that's kind of a little nitpick, like that moment of him being like, what the hell? Who is this? I just think it wasn't as impactful for a lot of people because they don't really recognize Falcon's voice off the top of their heads. But as soon as he heard the voice, everybody was kind of like, who is he talking to? So I feel like if it was Bucky, maybe a lot of people would be like, whoa. But then you get the moment. And I know I kind of shit on the movie a few weeks ago, but I did pop for it. When Black Panther walked out of the Doctor Strange portal, I was like, I did kind of freak out in my chair a little bit, because even though I don't particularly like Shuri and a lot of the Black Panther people, I don't know, maybe that's just me. I don't particularly like the movie. However, as soon as I saw Black Panther walk out, I was like, you know what? I'll accept this as the first thing. And then Black Panther locking eyes with Captain America, who they previously met already. It was so it felt so right that it was him. I feel like it would have been cool if Bucky walked out first and was like, hey Cap, and Cap was like, oh god, not again, or something like that. Maybe don't say anything, but like they lock eyes or something, and then they make beautiful, sweet love. I'm kidding. I know a lot of people on Reddit probably gonna take that out of context. I'm kidding. But then everybody was kind of like, oh yay, it's cool for like Black Panther, and all the people getting like revealed as they're alive. Like everybody was like, oh cool, it's the Doctor Strange guys. And then the Spider-Man moment when Spider-Man swung out, because everybody loves Spider-Man. Honestly, everybody loves Spider-Man. Spider-Man swings out, everybody freaked out for Spider-Man, and including myself. Spider-Man was definitely the one I was like, oh my god, yeah, Spider-Man. But yeah, the crowd, the people in their seats, I'm pretty sure that was another one. If someone had a gun, they'd be shooting it in the air like some Western movie. And it was just, oh my god, I felt chills for probably my favorite superhero, Spider-Man, swinging in. And then Spider-Man meeting Tony Stark again, like, oh hey Tony, how are you doing? Something happened and now I woke up or something. It felt like I passed out for a few seconds and I woke up. So that's a weird little way to explain the idea of how they didn't age in the 5 years since. So I thought that was interesting. And I think that moment right there when Spider-Man talked to Tony got the hug right there in that moment with Spider-Man. And I was like, as soon as I saw Tony hug Spider-Man, I was like, oh no, please don't do this. And then the battle continued between the Thanos' army and the Avengers. All of the Avengers, plus all of the guys in the Avengers teams and stuff. They're all there and stuff. And then it was just the war between the two. Whew, it was great. And as soon as Doctor Strange, because, you know, during the pretty much end of the battle, Thanos was about to start snapping the fingers, right? He had the gauntlet on already. And as soon as Doctor Strange looked at Tony, said 1 second, give it a second, that's when I knew this is what's going to happen. This is the real Endgame. And as soon as Tony looked at him, you could see Tony's eyes like, oh my god, you're going to make me die, aren't you? You piece of shit. And then he jumped out at Thanos and got the Infinity Gauntlet, put it on his hand. I am Iron Man. Boom. Snap. And that was it. Iron Man's gone. All of Thanos' army is gone. And you could feel no one had the same sadness. Which I thought was interesting. No one had a sadness for Thanos. Which, like, okay, I understand that. I kind of like Thanos, actually. I'm pretty sure a lot of people do like Thanos as a character. But I'm surprised a lot of people didn't just, you know, feel the sadness. You didn't feel that thickness in the air anymore. It was almost like a collective sigh of like, it's over. We did it. They won. And that was the best part of it. Everybody was we. We did it. We saw the Avengers win. We, the Avengers, everybody, we collectively as a group, we all can thank the Avengers, and they won the battle. Of course, losing Natasha and Iron Man in the process. But goddamn, it was so good. So if you want, like, my full, like, actual let's be a movie critic review thing, there are some videos that are going to come out probably over the next few weeks talking about Endgame, talking about kind of like my nitpicks of the movie. There's just a lot of weird inconsistencies with it. For instance, there's just a lot of timeline shit that happened. Too much. There's a weird Black Widow thing that happened because she sacrificed, but then Captain America went back in time, kind of fixed. I don't know. This is going to be topics for later videos, clearly. But there are some weird inconsistencies with it. However, I think it's very easy to look over any inconsistency this movie has. So yeah, I absolutely loved it. How did you guys like it? Please let me know in the comments. But yeah, Avengers Endgame. The most feel-good movie of our generation. my generation at least. It was amazing and wonderful, and I wish I had an outro plan for this, but I can't talk about this movie in the whole I'm a YouTuber thing. I can only talk about this as someone who is a genuine fan telling you now. It is the best superhero movie I have ever seen. Anyways, that's gonna have to be the end of this video here. Did you guys like it? Let me know in the comments below. If you want to see more of my over-analytic and dorky content, why not check out this video here? And while you're staring at this outro screen, why not click this little subscribe button? Anyways, hope you have a good day, and I'll catch you later. Bye-bye! Yo.